Welcome to episode 10 of ZANTASTIC. This is the podcast where we talk about what makes you fantastic. And my rule is the first 10 episodes or the first 10 blog posts, the first 10 of anything you do, those are practice. So this is the last practice. They should get better after this. At least I hope so. All right. In this episode, we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to talk about leadership. This was a shower thought this morning. I had a memory come back to me of a conversation I had with one of my husband's friends. Now, my husband was in the personal development field, neuro-linguistic programming, and one of his friends was a very well-known leadership coach in the UK. And I was entering into a position of leadership as an employee of an organization, and I was challenged to think about leadership. And so my husband suggested that I talk to his friend Michael. The conversation was fascinating. So many insights. I think I talked to him for about an hour and a half, and I've been thinking about leadership from his perspective a lot lately, and I wanted to share some of those thoughts with you. Now, you might not be in a leadership position, but no matter what you're doing in your life, there are some areas in your life where you have to be a leader, where you have to be the CEO of your life, where you have to take charge, you have to set direction, you have to establish a vision. And if you are doing anything entrepreneurial, guess what? You're not just the leader, you're the worker. You're the chief and the Indian. You are the boss and you are the employee. If you're a content creator, oftentimes you are that as well. You have to have vision. You have to have your own leadership. So this is applicable no matter what you're doing, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you're working in an organization, if you are just an employee and you have aspirations to be a manager or a leader, this is going to apply to you. So with thanks to Michael Cahill, I am going to dive into some of the things he told me, but also some of my observations on leadership. When you become a leader in an organization, you automatically go from a place of being everybody's best friend to now being someone that sets vision, that sets the direction, that establishes boundaries, rules, and expectations, right? Because of that, you end up not being everyone's best friend anymore. Now, does this mean that you don't have the same relationships with people? They change, right? Because now you're in a position of leadership and what you say goes. And so everybody treats you a little bit differently. You'll start experiencing something that happens where people tell you what you want to hear and don't necessarily tell you the truth, or they say things in a way that aren't as honest and forthright and open as they would when you were just a peer. So you have to watch out for that. Something that I always tried to address with people was don't put me, just because I'm director, just because I'm your boss, don't put me in a pedestal position. I wanted people who reported to me to feel free to tell me anything, because oftentimes they're on the front line. They're the one talking to customers. They're the ones seeing things. They have just as much insight as I had. So I wanted to make sure that everyone felt super comfortable in communicating with me. That means in one-on-ones, whatever was said there stayed there. It had no impact on their job performance. It had no impact on anything. And the other thing that ends up happening is, as a leader, it's your job to develop the people that report to you. That means when you see potential in someone, it's up to you to coach them into a position where they feel confident. Now, I've worked with a number of people who I asked to do things that wasn't on their job description, things that were bigger, things that were stretching them. And every single one of them, I could see the potential. I could see it in their eyes. I could see it in what they did. I could see that they could reach higher and they could reach bigger. But it was my job as a leader to coach them, to make it easy for them, to help them develop that confidence. When you're a leader, you can't do it all. It's your job to develop your team so that they reach new heights. And there's nothing more empowering than having someone that reports to you stretch out of a comfort zone and find out that they can do something amazing. I've done this a lot with team members saying, let's do a live stream. Let's go to the audience. Let's show what you really know. And highly technical people aren't necessarily comfortable public speaking, even on a live stream, even when I'm there holding their hand. But we would do it slowly, easily, in a way that they found comfort and that they saw that, yes, they really could do those things. Now, it's not just your job to develop the people that work for you. It's your job to be aware of yourself, to do the inner work. Because here's what happens. Now, if you're managing an organization and say you have 70 people who are in your organization, the people who are on the lowest tiers, you establish policies, procedures, show them how you want the job done, and it's very much process-based. But as someone gets promoted through an organization into a position of leadership, now it's more about them. If they're not doing their inner work, if they don't know who they are, what ends up happening, the higher someone gets in an organization, their psychological issues start coming out sideways. They start trying to work on the things that are going on in their life, in their psyche, what happened with mom and dad when they were a little kid. Those things get acted out. Let's say you have someone in a leadership position who has a fear of failure, or maybe they have a fear of success. These things are going to impact how they set the direction for the organization. They will make decisions that feel right to them because they're operating based on their subconscious beliefs, and so they'll do things that don't make any sense. They will set things up in a way that those unresolved traumas can be fixed. It's part of our nature. It's part of our subconscious nature to just set up things that happen in our life as opportunities for healing. But if someone is not self-aware and isn't doing their inner work, it comes out at their direct reports, at their employees sideways. What ends up happening is that dysfunction starts to occur within an organization because it's not based on process. You can't set direction based on a rule book. Direction comes from an intuitive knowing of what the market needs, what your employees are capable of doing, and then finding a perfect fit between your employees and what they can do and the markets that you serve. But you have to be aware of what that is and kind of get yourself out of the way. Leadership is not about being the boss. Leadership is about service. Leadership is about being of service to a larger gestalt organization that you have put together. As a leader, you are not the one who just barks orders at everyone and everyone is, afraid about their paycheck, so they just do what you've said. Your job is to understand your organization, understand the people that work within that organization and how they bounce off of each other, and then also understand the psychology of your customers. According to a number of statistics, most CEOs end up coming from finance and product roles, but fully 20% of CEOs end up coming from sales and marketing. Why is this so valuable? Understanding the market and being able to communicate are so critically important. If you understand the psychology of the people who buy your products, then you can more accurately direct your organization to serve those markets. As well, sales and marketing professionals end up being those who can communicate quite clearly, and CEOs must communicate. But if you're not doing that inner work, if you don't know who you really are, if you don't understand your market, the people that you're working with, and most importantly, yourself, things can go haywire. Unconscious trauma will come out in an organization. Now, with people who are in the trenches in your organization, they often rely on peer support to work through issues. If unresolved trauma starts coming out, they turn to each other. Do you believe what Jane in accounting did? I can't believe this. And there's all kinds of office gossip and peer support that happens within an organization, much like what happens in a family, right? But for mom and dad, for the CEOs, for the C-suite, there isn't often that kind of support. C-suites often turn to executive coaches to work through some of these issues. If a CEO is feeling insecurity, if they're not feeling confident about the decisions that they're making, they can't go to the people that report to them. Their job as a CEO is to be a leader. It's to be able to say that this is the direction we're going and to speak with confidence, because the people that report to them need to know that someone is steering the ship and that the ship is going in the right direction. So if a leader is not feeling confident, they must rely on external coaching, external resources in order to find that confidence. They may turn to some of their direct reports for data, for information, but those emotional needs aren't things that they can let out within an organization. It can cause all sorts of havoc. The primary job of a leader is to take care of themselves, to ensure that their emotional trauma doesn't come out sideways, that their unconscious beliefs or fears don't get in the way of the success of the organization. A Harvard Business Review analysis found that 66% of CEOs wished that they were more prepared for the interpersonal side of leading an organization. Executive coaching helps out so much with this because it really is psychological coaching. The higher somebody gets within an organization, the more they must work on themselves, the more they must understand who they are and what it is that they're trying to accomplish. They must understand their emotional trauma that has happened in childhood and how it can come up and out at other people sideways. Because if it does happen, it can create so much havoc in an organization. You may cause your high-performing employees to look for other opportunities because they don't understand what's happening in the organization. Nothing makes sense. We're all trying to drive for success, but the leader is making these types of decisions and it's driving us down a path that doesn't make sense. Or there might be interpersonal conflict between the C-suite and an employee. While leaders are the ones who speak most in meetings, it's more important, really, for leaders to listen. They need to understand what the people on the front lines of their organization are hearing and seeing in the marketplace. It's important for them to understand what's happening emotionally and intellectually with everyone on their team. They have to understand where the blockers really lie because it's their job to prioritize where the organization is going and who the organization is serving. If there are interpersonal dynamics within an organization that are blocking people from achieving, it is up to a CEO to prioritize that, get those blockers out of the way, resolve conflict quickly so that their people can achieve, so their people can do the job that they've been hired to do, so that their people can actually find fulfillment in the work that they're doing. Now, what happens when you're a leader and someone isn't performing? How does that reflect upon you? What can you do about it? Sometimes it's clarity. Someone just isn't clear about what is expected of them. It's your job as a leader to ensure that everyone on your team knows what's expected of them, providing deadlines, objectives, and crystal clear clarity on what the purpose of the work actually is, that the vision is crystal clear. Often your high performers are just going to take the ball and run with it. They'll figure out a way to get to that objective. If you're providing clarity for those high performers, they know exactly what to do. Others might need a little more help, and that's where your managers come in. But your job is just to establish the vision, establish the purpose, establish the mission, and what it is that we're all trying to do as the overall objective. You don't need to micromanage. You don't need to get in there and look at every single thing that someone is doing. You don't need them to justify every minute of every single day. You don't want to do that. As a leader, you've got a lot of things on your plate. You need to trust your people, trust that they're doing exactly what it is that you hired them to do towards the service of the entire organization. As a leader, you just don't want to be in the daily trenches. But sometimes you have issues. Sometimes you have an employee that is confused, or maybe they have emotional or just life blocks that are stopping them from performing at their peak. Leadership becomes sort of a spiritual journey in a lot of ways, because when people know who they are at their core, at the core of who we all are, I mean, we're all spiritual beings having physical experiences, and leaders have to recognize that. Leaders have to recognize that there's more to the psychology of the people that show up than their resume. There are experiences, there are objectives, there's karma, there's dharma, there's all sorts of things going on. And leaders have to be able to recognize the whole of the person. I mean, you're hiring them to do a job, but if there's something blocking them that's stopping them from doing the job you hired them to do, leaders need to give their people a chance in order to explore some of those spiritual blocks, because it's all spiritual. You know, I was driving once in California and there was a sign for a spiritual community. And I just found it so funny because everything has spirit within it, right? So just by calling something a spiritual community. I mean, every community at its heart has a spiritual aspect to it, right? Because we're all spiritual beings having this physical experience. So spirit underscores everything. If you're an entrepreneur or maybe you're starting out on a content creation journey, spirituality underscores all of it. What's the purpose? What's the reason? Why do you want to do what it is that you want to do? Why do you want to be on your own? Why don't you want to work for someone else? Is it just financial? Most of the time, it isn't. In the day job, I work a lot with coaches, and every single coach that I talk to has something within them that drives them to be of service to other people. Even large organizations that are creating things like iPhones and Starlink and cars and all of these other things, there is a larger mission that is at stake. There's a larger mission that underscores everything that the organization does. So as an entrepreneur, it's important that you understand what is the thing that you're trying to do. What is the objective? How are you trying to be of service to humanity? What is that mission? That underscores what your company is trying to do. As an entrepreneur, you have to be employee and leader. And sometimes it's very easy to, get the work done and make sure everything gets published, make sure the customers get served, make sure all the marketing gets done. There's a lot of things that must be done. But it's important as an entrepreneur that you balance the things that must be done, the work that would be done by an employee in a large organization, with the leadership that needs to exist in an organization. And the organization is you. It's important for you to do the inner work and understand yourself, understand how you're motivated, understand what your purpose is, understand sort of the karmic things that are happening, the ancestral wounds that you have, all of the traumas that you had as a kid, and work on those things. Otherwise, spirit kind of has a way of popping those things into your reality so that you can resolve them. Our job as humans is to find clarity. It is to get back to who we really are and sort of shine that inner sun that comes through each and every one of us as our gift to the world. When you consider your business from more of a spiritual perspective, it's much easier. It's just about being your whole self. It's about being 100% you. It's not trying to take your square peg and fit it into a round hole. It is about being 100% who you really are. I mean, an apple tree doesn't try to be a pear tree. It's an apple tree. That's what it does. There's something about you where your gifts to the world and your core expertise, your core unique value proposition really comes down to who you really are at your core, your spiritual purpose, your gift of being an apple tree, not trying to be the pear tree, not trying to look outside of yourself and see, well, other people are doing it this way, and so maybe I should do it that way too. It's really getting down to who you really are. And who you really are is underneath all of the generational trauma. It's underneath all of the karma and the dharma and all of the other stuff. It's underneath all of your beliefs about the world, and even your beliefs about yourself. When you strip it all down to who you really are, that in and of itself is the gift to the world. It is your leadership. And when you get down to the core of that, everything else kind of falls into place. That's what true leadership is, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're leading a large organization. You have to know who you really are, and that's leadership. So if you are looking to grow a business, the real work of growing that business starts with you. It starts with knowing who you are. It starts with understanding your beliefs about the world and understanding the programming that you have in your head that filters the data that might be coming to you. I shared information in one meeting years ago, and people heard it differently and heard it through their filters, and they did something completely different with the information. And I was kind of just watching, do I tell them that they're missing the point, or do I just let them work it out? Sometimes you just have to let people work it out and fully understand what it is to them, because we all have our filters, right? But if you really want to be a leader, the important thing to do is to get beyond the filters, understand the core of relationships, understand the core of who you really are. Because when you're there and you can really listen to the people that report to you, to your market, to your customers, to your prospects, you'll know that's when you'll shine as a leader in your field. Because leadership is not just about leading an organization or leading yourself. Leadership is about setting a direction for the world. Well, we're getting deep here on ZANTASTIC. I hope that this episode was useful to you. It's really all about spirituality, what it comes down to. If you want to find out what makes you fantastic, it comes down to getting rid of all of the garbage and getting to the core of who you are as a being. Not just a human being, but as a being. I don't know if I'll go deep on the next one, but if this was helpful to you, leave a comment down below. Reach out to me if you want to talk about spiritual stuff. I'm into all of this, of course. And we will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.